in the song known as The Cowboy's Lament. As I walked out in the streets of Laredo, as I walked out in Laredo one day, spied a young cowboy all wrapped in white linen.
Asteroid City. No one liked it, but why? Asteroid City was released in 2023 to a few people saying that it was a masterpiece, a few more saying they didn't get it, and mostly complete radio silence. It has not exactly bad, but extremely middling reviews on pretty much everything, and generated so little awards buzz that no one even remembered to complain that it was snubbed. A film likely forever relegated to an ill-fated middle spot on a Letterboxd user's Wes Anderson ranked list. To say this film had a bad reception would imply that it was polarizing, when in reality everyone who saw it just kind of thought it was mid and forgot about it a week later. Me, however, I'm not so like this. I saw Asteroid City twice in the cinema and bought the DVD the week of its release. I have the script book. I have a massive Asteroid City poster in my living room. I would have it as number 1 on my Letterboxd Wes Anderson ranked list. If I actually had a Letterboxd Wes Anderson ranked list. So what is going on here? Do I just have bad taste? Or is everyone else wrong? Well, to answer that, we first have to understand what even happens in Asteroid City. Asteroid City is a film about Jones Hall. If that sounds wrong to you, then you're in good company. He's not actually named in most of the shooting script, and almost no one I've spoken to about this film remembers this guy's name, let alone understands that he's a protagonist, so let's refresh. Jones Hall is this guy. No, not this guy. Well, not quite this guy, but we'll get to that. Jones Hall, played by Jason Schwartzman, is an actor who is cast in the part of Augie Steenbeck in the fictional play Asteroid City. Directed by eccentric divorcee Schubert Green and written by Western-loving gay shut-in Conrad Earp. In their first meeting, Jones and Conrad get on very well and kind of implied strike a relationship. 6 months into the first run of Asteroid City, the play, Conrad is killed in a car accident, and Jones has to keep playing a grieving husband in a play written by his dead partner. Now all of that is told to us in out of order black and white interludes, so if you saw this film once, a while ago, then maybe you didn't pick up any of that. So let's cover what actually happens in the movie. Augie Steenbeck, played by Jones Hall, and also Jason Schwartzman, technically, is taking his son Woodrow to a science invention competition thing. A bunch of kids are bringing inventions to the town of Asteroid City, and the best one wins a check for an undisclosed amount of money. Also in Asteroid City, the actress Mitch Campbell and her daughter Dina, Maya Hawke and a class of children, Jarvis Cocker, this fucked up kid, Bryan Cranston when he accidentally walked on set, this woman who is in Succession, and way more, but we'll get to them when they're relevant. During an ellipse, not an eclipse, an ellipse, an alien lands in the town and takes away an asteroid. Due to government protocol, the whole town goes under lockdown. The kids break the story and crowds gather outside the town while everyone obsesses with the alien, and Augie breaks it to his children that their mother died. Woodrow and Dina strike up a romance, and this kid writes the song of the year. On the day the lockdown is supposed to be lifted, the alien comes back, returns the now inventoried asteroid, and then leaves again. The lockdown is reinforced and everyone loses their minds. Jones, leaves set to get some air, has a brief conversation with the wife who used to play his actress, and then returns to finish Augie's story. The second lockdown of Asteroid City is rescinded. Woodrow wins the prize money and tells his dad that he plans on spending on his girlfriend. And then everyone goes home, the audience left behind in Asteroid City. Okay, so why exactly didn't all of that work? Well, like I said, you ask 99% of people who saw the film who Jones Hall is and they probably don't even recognize the name. These parts of the film, the parts telling a more overarching story that's supposed to give context to the events inside Asteroid City, are told in interludes, spiced between moments in the film. The name Jones Hall is only said maybe twice in the whole movie, and entirely in moments when you wouldn't necessarily understand it as important information to hold on to. It's not very hard to come out of Asteroid City and write these segments off as quirky flourishes, the whole thing reducing down to a simple narrative frame for Anderson to contain his characters in, rather than the core of the story. So then, what are you left with? The story of Asteroid City without the story of Asteroid City is just kind of nothing. A grieving father takes his kid to a science fair. They meet some strange people there. Then they go home. That really anything? Well, yes. The thing with Asteroid City is that you kind of have to see it twice, which is a bit of a hard sell if you didn't like the film the first time around, but bear with me. Asteroid City, the first time, sort of just for the beauty of it, and the film is beautiful. Say what you want about the Anderson house style, but you can't deny it's visually striking. So it's just kind of hilarious. I mean, the song, that kid trying to touch the cactus, the government running psychological tests on the kids after seeing the alien, the goddamn alien posing for a photo, that's beautiful, man. And so funny and charming. Even if you toss away all of the meaning of it, it's just fun. The problem is that it's hard to really appreciate just how fun it is if you end up stuck in your head obsessed with what the film means. If you want to understand Asteroid City, you first have to believe that it means absolutely nothing, and understanding it is a hopeless feat. Take a breath, look around, feel out these characters, listen to the easy melancholy music. Live and breathe the world for a moment, and let yourself feel like you never want to leave. That might sound counterintuitive, but Asteroid City is trying to let you live its meaning. It doesn't just want to tell you. Let's really talk about Wes Anderson for a moment. When you think about a Wes Anderson film, there's a good chance you're thinking about something like this. Colourful, symmetrical, eclectic, maybe a little kitschy. What you probably aren't thinking of is this. Not particularly colourful, not very symmetrical, no elaborate set. This shot looks like it could come from a variety of directors. Now, I'm not going to tell you that Wes Anderson doesn't have the unique visual style he's known for. That would be crazy. But I am going to argue that there's a little more to a Wes Anderson film than its looks. Anderson's detractors will tell you that his films are unemotional and overly obsessed with visuals, with little attention paid to story or characters. Someone who has seen and loved a lot of Wes Anderson movies, I don't think that's even remotely the case. I don't like Wes Anderson films for the visuals. I like them for the characters. It's insane to me to say that shots like this aren't conveying any emotion. Characters in Anderson films might look blank-faced, but they're anything but unemotional. On the contrary, the actors that Anderson hires, he hires their ability to convey extremely complicated emotions using very few facial expressions. And what, I'm supposed to believe that the characters Darjeeling aren't interesting? That movie is built on those characters. There's not even really a plot aside from their personal drama. Same goes for Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore. The whole conceit of Fantastic Mr. Fox is that the animated animal characters are as relatably and intrinsically human as they are. You can't buy that Wes Anderson films aren't about characters and emotions if you actually sit down and watch some Wes Anderson films. When they're working for you, Anderson's writing can hit like a goddamn gut punch. And all of them are telling stories about the most universal struggles known to man. So love, family, and death. Much more giving to characters and emotions than that. My point really is that I get why people wrote off Asteroid City. I get why people write off Anderson altogether. His visuals are so striking that it's easy to think that's all he has to offer. Combine that with a story that takes a couple of tries to piece together, and I get it. You can watch Asteroid City and think, well, Anderson's done it again. It looks great, but what hold can I get on the story? Never mind the people in it. I guess it doesn't mean anything. Just like the rest. So, with all of that being said, this film, as with all films, is obviously up to interpretation. I'm going to give my reading of the movie in this video, but if you saw the film and didn't like it very much, or if you haven't seen the film at all, or if you've seen it a million times, then I'd encourage you to watch it or rewatch it in good faith and decide what it means to you on your own terms. Okay, so the alien is a metaphor for death. I know that sounds frustratingly cliche, but hear me out. Death is probably the most overwhelming presence in the film, down to the barren desert and distant nuclear bombs, and obviously the death of a partner being what connects Jones and Augie. Everyone in the play is grieving death or dealing with death in some way. Augie's family are grieving the death of the wife, and Midge is dealing with the death of the character Dolores, who she's rehearsing the part for. On that note, actually, it's interesting that we perhaps never quite get a real grasp on Midge. Everything we know about her, we know through how it relates to her character. It's hard to tell where she begins and her character ends. A little like Jones and Augie. There's a moment where Augie burns his hand on a grill in front of Midge, and she looks around for a moment and says,
"You really did it. That actually happened."
And it's a little bit unclear if she's in character when she says that. I don't mean the character she is in the fictional play within Asteroid City, I mean the character she is in the fictional play called Asteroid City. The more you watch the scene, the more it seems like a breaking character. Augie was supposed to burn his hand. We know that because we see Jones and Conrad talking about it. But I think what's happening there isn't Augie burning his hand. It's Jones. There's this question in the scene with Jones and Conrad. Why did Augie burn his hand on the quickie griddle? And Jones's answer is, interestingly, ripped right from the real words of Jason Schwartzman on the set of Rushmore, to have a reason why his heart is beating so fast. But then the more interesting question is, why did Jones burn his hand on the quickie griddle? And what is it with all these layers of actors folding in on each other? Wes Anderson has said that Asteroid City was written for Jason Schwartzman, and his words are in the film, and he's playing an actor in the process of grieving, trying to play a grieving character. Then there's Scarlett Johansson playing an actress playing a character in a play who is herself playing an actress playing a character in a play. And all of that isn't even getting into the fact that the world in which Asteroid City is a play is also a fictional television broadcast explaining the process of a fictional play being made. It's confusing and convoluted, and it all kind of falls in on itself until you no longer know who is who. When Jones walks out of the play, he talks to Schubert Green, the director, and a close friend of Conrad's. Jones says he still doesn't understand the play, and that he feels too close to the character, that he's breaking his heart every night. He asks Schubert if he's doing him right, referring to the character of Augie and maybe a little bit referring to Conrad. Schubert's response is to tell him that he's doing him just right, that he became Augie and Augie became him, and it doesn't matter if he understands the play or if it breaks his heart to do it. He just has to keep telling the story. But back to the alien. Jeff Goldblum's in one scene in this film, in the background of a shot, where he tells someone that he's going to play the alien as a metaphor, but he isn't sure what it's a metaphor for. My pitch is obviously death, but let's zoom out on that for a second. The alien, more than anything, represents the unknown. Though we can see and know when it's coming, we don't really know anything about it. It's not inherently malicious, but it's not overly friendly. It comes, inventories an asteroid, and then leaves. Really, it's bureaucratic. I don't think it's a stretch to say that the greatest unknown we have is death. We can see it and we know when it's coming, but we don't really know anything about it. Combined with everything else going on in the movie surrounding death and grief, it's hard to think that the unknown of the alien could really be about anything else. What's interesting, though, isn't the alien itself, but how everyone reacts to it. From the second the alien appears, almost every character is a little bit obsessed. Everyone is desperately trying to understand it, to capture it, to work it out. They want to know why it's here, how it lives, if it's friendly. The important reactions, though, are the ones about art and love. Dear Alien is a song within the movie written by this kid in response to seeing the alien. It starts a little bit somber, a little bit fearful, wondering if the alien is a friend or a foe. It's also worth noting that the alien here is referred to as being in heaven, so death themes are going a little crazy there, but I digress. After this opening, you would expect the rest of the song to be about, well, the alien. But it's not. The rest of the songs didn't mention the alien. It's a call to dance. During this dance, the teacher and this cowboy, Montana, share a moment, and then keep dancing. And that kind of summarizes the whole thing, right? Faced with a great unknown thing, this incomprehensible force of nature, the characters dance and sing and fall in love with each other and keep telling the story they don't fully understand. Augie is a war photographer. What more literal interpretation of facing death and making art out of it can you get? He even takes photo of the alien. Of course, there's also all of the grieving actors playing dead or grieving characters, but along with that, there's all of the moments in the film of people falling in love with each other in every way possible. The most repeated and most confusing phrase in Asteroid City.
You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep.
This rattled around in my head for a long time after I first watched the film. When I tell people that I really get and connect with Asteroid City, it's always the first question I get. So what do they mean by
You can't wake up
if you don't fall asleep?
I've had a lot of time to think about it, and it's dreaming, right? Sleep is dreaming, is fantasy, is art.
You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep.
I think it means you can't live if you don't dream. I think it kind of means the point of living is dreaming, existing momentarily in a fantasy. I think that's what Schubert means when he tells Jones that he doesn't have to understand, he just has to keep telling the story. The camera doesn't leave Asteroid City with the characters. It is the only Wes Anderson film that ends in its lowest level of framing within the fiction. Asteroid City is, I would say, about seeing death and not trying to solve it. Seeing death and making art and falling in love with people about it. In the face of looming danger and heartbreak, choosing to dream and fantasize and dance. Or, I mean, that's what I take from it. Asteroid City is one of my favorite films of all time, and I knew that from the second time I saw it. It's not for everyone, and if you didn't like it and still don't like it, then I sympathize with you, and I understand to an extent why you think that, but I want it to get a fair chance. I think a lot of people write it off without really understanding what it's doing that is so interesting to people who love it. If you made it this far, then thank you, and I hope that I managed to convince you a little on this movie. Not to love it yourself, and I hope I convinced you that it is a movie worthy of loving. That's pretty much all I have to say. Get on with your day now.
See by your outfit that you are a cowboy. These words he did say.